What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Jericholic8704, and I am here with the fourth installment of Raw is Jericholic8704. Now, I'm very excited to tackle this Raw because this Raw illustrates a principle, a belief, if you will, that is relevant throughout, the entire wrestling community, especially those who, look at it with a more critical eye, reviewers and, radio show hosts and all that stuff. There's a theory and a belief that if a show ends on a certain note, it will affect someone's outlook on the show, if you know what I mean. Let's just say we have a kick-ass show full of kick-ass matches, and the main event just sucks. We're going to look back on that show and say, wow, that show wasn't all that good. And other way around, let's just say we have a bunch of shit matches, but a really awesome main event. You're going to say, damn, that was an awesome show. Now, you might be able to look at it from an outsider's perspective and say, okay, here are the pros, here are the cons of the show, and come up with a solid grade based on those pros and cons. However, your immediate reaction, once the show ends, the announcers say goodbye, and the little WWF logo or WWE logo flashes on the screen, your immediate thought will be, man, that was a great show, or man, that show sucked, or man, that show was okay, based on the main event. That is exactly what happened to me with this show. For the first, I can't even say for the first, this entire show was awesome. I loved every second of the show. However, the last 3 minutes of this show sucked a giant dick. That being said, after it was over, I was like, even though I'd just seen all these amazing segments and I had loved every second of this Raw and I was enjoying myself, after that horrible finish in the main event, I was just like, that was it? God, that Raw sucked. And then, I thought about that for 10 minutes and I was like, damn, I was enjoying myself this entire time. And then all of a sudden, this main event falls flat. And then I'm like, damn, that show was awful. But this show was good. I loved this Raw. This is by far the best Raw I've reviewed so far in this installment. You know what I mean? So let's dive right in. Raw, June 2nd, 2003, from San Diego, California. First thing, before we even get to the intro, The Rock arrives in his car. The crowd goes nuts. Rock is actually drinking a Diet Mountain Dew, for those of you who wanted to know. He says the most electrifying man in sports entertainment is here. He says he's going to talk to the people. He starts walking away. The camera's behind him. He said, cameraman, don't look at the people's booty. It gets a little hot. And then the Raw intro starts. Pyro goes off. And then we have an opening 6-woman tag team match. Trish Stratus, Ivory, and Jackie versus Jazz, Victoria, and Molly Holly. Two things to note here. One, all 6 of these women actually worked hard, and they actually can work. See, that was the dividing line between Raw and SmackDown. You see, SmackDown in a lot of instances was better than Raw. However, in terms of women's division, Raw kicked SmackDown's ass. What was SmackDown's hottest women's angle? The Tori Wilson, Dawn Marie angle, and that angle sucked. All 6 of these women are good wrestlers, and they all came out, and they were all doing well. I should also note, each of them didn't get their own entrance. They all came out to their specific captain's theme. This mainly was about Trish and Jazz. The heels came out to Jazz's theme. Jazz's theme was so awesome. I totally forgot her theme, to be honest. But this theme was awesome. I loved Jazz's theme. Anyway, King was freaking out because of the, quote, plethora of puppies. All 6 kind of just go for it and leaves Trish and Victoria to start. Trish does her little Matrix move to knock Victoria and Molly outside, who gets crossbodied by Ivory. I always mark out for the Matrix spot. Jazz gets the heat on Trish with some clotheslines and a double chicken wing. Trish also gets camel clutched and Boston crabbed by Molly and Victoria while the ref deals with all the other women. King said this double submission was very arousing and he had to remember it. Trish gets the hot tag to Jackie, who hits neck breakers and a flapjack. Ivory gets the tag and hits a crossbody. Trish hits a stratosphere on Victoria, and then Ivory hits the poison Ivory on Jazz for the pin. And then Trish's music plays, which I found to be kind of ironic, but maybe Ivory just didn't have music. I mean, the last time Ivory was really in something big was back in 2001 with Right to Censor, and what was their theme? Just that fucking alarm that was annoying as hell. Anyway, this is a really good match. I actually enjoyed it. 2.25 stars, it wasn't bad at all. It was actually pretty fun for what it was worth. It wasn't that long, but it was fun. Then we had Goldberg showing up in his vintage Barracuda. He comes out, he's looking all cool, he's got his car and everything. Coach tries to interview him, but Goldberg basically just tells him to fuck off, and he keeps going forward. Then we had a WWE.com poll. Now, back to like what I said last week, how these .com polls were just pretty lame. This one was also pretty lame. Will JR's cookbook be a flop or a success? Well, damn, I don't want to be a dick to JR, because JR was always my friend, Whenever, he'd enter us in for Raw and just say, welcome to Raw, like, we appreciate you having us in your homes and all that. Like, JR was always my bro, so like, why would I want his cookbook to be a flop? Anyway, so that was, we'll get the results to that later. Then we had the greatest backstage segment of all time. Test and Stacy were arguing. Stacy's all pissed about Test pulling her in front of Booker T's kick last week in his match with Booker T. And again, that was one of those things where it was blatantly obvious that Test had, pulled her in harm's way. Stacy calls him Andrew, which I thought was kind of funny. Test says Steiner's got his head all fucked up. Stacy says we're over. Tess says, you are contractually obligated to be my manager and my marketing director. Stacy's pissed, and she walks back into the women's locker room. The acting here was so horrible. And I know I mentioned this in my wrestling pet peeves, where I'm like, if you're going to do a storyline with acting, at least get some good wrestlers who are good actors. You know what I mean? But in terms of backstage segments, you can make them as horrible as possible. Stacy, I love you, Stacy Keibler. You're great and everything, but you can't act to save your life. And she was doing like the typical we are done, Test. Like her delivery was so awful, and then Test was even better. Test was like pretending to be pissed, and we all know Test is ripped. He had a vein in his head that was about to burst. His head was as red as a tomato. He was about to fucking blow up. It was amazing. I laughed so hard at this segment. It was a 5-star segment. Nothing. I would even go as far to say 7-star segment. This was awesome. Then we had Hurricane come out. Hurricane, did his little entrance. He had his pose going on, and then out of the blue, Orton comes out and attacks Hurricane. Flair and Triple H come out, cheer Orton on, I guess. Orton takes Hurricane, throws him backstage. All three walk to the ring for the highlight of Raw, this fucking promo. There was a sign held up by like a girl that probably would have been like 6 or 7 years old at the time, and it said, Rick is a jerk, and Rick was spelled R-I-C-K. That was hilarious. Flair says he's honored to have HBK come out here and tell the world that Flair was his idol. Flair says he's seen several Flair wannabes, and he said that's all HBK will ever be. Says he had to go to bars and ride planes and have the people say how great Shawn Michaels is over the past couple days, and it's been bothering Ric Flair. Flair says he's never passed the torch, and the word legend is being thrown around way too loosely. Flair says, you want to know how you become a legend? You make love to 3,000 women. King found this very, very impressive. I love that line. You make love to 3,000 women. Flair could have said, you sleep with 3,000 women, you have sex with 3,000 women, any sort of euphemism. He said, make love, which was hilarious. Because, as you know, Ric Flair was not saying you have to make love to 3,000 women. No, Ric Flair was flailing around. He was ripping his jacket off. He was doing his crazy Ric Flair, you gotta make love to 3,000 women! He's doing his crazy voice. That wasn't supposed to be a Ric Flair impression in terms of like how my voice sounds compared to Ric Flair. That was supposed to be an energy and pacing impression of Ric Flair. Just so you guys don't write in the comments, oh my god, your impression of Ric Flair sucked. I know my voice didn't sound like Ric Flair there. However, the pacing and the flailing and the heavy breathing, that was all Flair. Anyway. He says, you wrestle 350 times a year, you bleed every night. I found that hilarious too, because we all know Flair loves to bleed until his face looks like a tomato. And someone will say, Jesus Christ! That guy's the greatest, which was another fantastic line. Flair had like 5 great lines in like one sentence. Anyway, Flair says he lost to Triple H, who beat the man. Flair says he passed the torch to Triple H. Flair says Orton's going to be next. Flair said he told Triple H 2 things. The first was when he was making the girls sweat, he said, never get off him. And I should also preface this by saying Flair is like convulsing and he's bouncing around the ring and he's ripping all his clothes off when he's talking. And he just said, Triple H, you never get off the girls until they say, oh, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. So Flair was going absolutely nuts. And then his second piece of advice was never turn your back on the dirtiest player in the game. Flair says after Bad Blood, where he and Triple H will win their matches, they say they'll have a limo with booze and women, especially Shawn Michaels, because he would have made Shawn Michaels his bitch. And then the crowd goes, whoa. And then all of a sudden, Shawn Michaels music hits, crowd goes nuts. Shawn Michaels comes out and he's still rocking the t-shirt into the jeans. Shawn Michaels has always rocked that look. His hair was starting to grow out, as I mentioned last week, so he's looking a little better. But man, he was still tucking that t-shirt into the jeans. But who am I to judge Shawn Michaels? He said he knew he was taking a chance when revealing himself in front of Flair, and true to Flair, he made HBK pay for it. Shawn Michaels said he is no longer a boy watching Ric Flair. He is a man who's created the name Heartbreak Kid, doing the same thing Flair did. Shawn Michaels says he does not need to brag about women. It's about one thing. It's about what you do in the ring. Shawn Michaels says, you didn't pass the torch to me. I took it from you, which was the greatest line of the show. Holy shit. That was such a great line. What a perfect, and like Flair, as you know, Flair's like flailing. He's going nuts. He's pissed off, and like Orton and Triple H have to hold him back. He says when you couldn't make it in WWE, he ran down south, and only to prove that Shawn Michaels was the new standard. Shawn Michaels says he's no longer an angry man. A lot has changed. He's going to prove that Space Mountain is nothing but an old, broken down ride. This made Flair fucking lose it. He was about to he tackled the ropes. Shawn Michaels says he's going to do to Flair what he does to everyone else, make them famous, and he says he's going to shove that torch where the sun doesn't shine. Triple H asks Shawn Michaels to come down and fight. Shawn Michaels starts heading down, but then Nash's music hits. Nash is also rocking the tucked t-shirt. I guess he wanted to match his buddy Shawn Michaels. So Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash head to the ring, right? So Flair, Triple H, and Orton are all kind of ready to attack. And then out of fucking nowhere, and I mean out of nowhere, like sometimes when a wrestler's going to make a surprise attack off camera, you can hear the crowd kind of buzzing as they approach the ring. So you kind of have an idea something is coming. So out of fucking nowhere, Hurricane hits a chair. He gets a chair and just wails Orton in the back. And out of nowhere, Hurricane is somehow mixed in with all these other guys. So you have Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Ric Flair, Triple H, Randy Orton, and the fucking Hurricane, all brawling all around the ring. So we had a team of Nash, HBK, and the fucking Hurricane. This segment was fucking awesome. I loved everything about this. Normally I try and I'm half paying attention because I'm trying to write down notes and see what's happening so I can report it back and good detailed information. But oh my god, I had to watch this twice because it was just so fucking awesome. I loved every second of this. I had to watch it so many times. This was great. Best moment of this Raw. And there was still another awesome segment. Then we had Scott Steiner with Stacy Keibler taking on Steven Richards. Steven Richards gets the jobber entrance, so it's a sad day to be him. Test shows up, all smiles. Steiner gets jumped from behind. Steiner gets pissed that he got hit from behind, so he just beats the shit out of Steven Richards. Half a star, nothing exciting. Stacy exits the ring, and you can practically see her ass. Bischoff's music hits. There's asshole chants for him. Bischoff announces that at Bad Blood, it's Steiner versus Test, with the winner getting Stacy. Hooray! Then we come back from commercial, and then JR, no music's playing. JR just announces that Freddie Blassie had passed away, and, he was saying how it was a shame because Freddie Blassie was on Raw just a couple weeks ago and everything. So, it does suck, to hear about Freddie Blassie's passing. But yeah, JR did a good job, and King did a good job too, kind of not taking the fun out of Raw, but also, letting the fans know and letting everyone at home know that it's serious information, and they wished the best for his wife and his family. So, it was good. Then we had a backstage segment with Austin and Bischoff. Bischoff says he's happy for Bischoff presents Bad Blood. Austin says don't touch him. And as Austin presents Bad Blood, Austin says he wants the main event of Raw to be HBK, Nash, and Hurricane versus Evolution. Austin asks Bischoff what he wants to do for Bad Blood. Bischoff suggests a triathlon. Austin says we should do a redneck triathlon at Austin and Bischoff present Bad Blood, considering Eric Bischoff is a triathlete and Austin is a redneck. So there you go. Austin says this doesn't mean we're friends, which I thought was kind of funny. Then we had a backstage segment, Goldberg interview. Goldberg was being interviewed by Terry. Goldberg says he's pissed at Jericho and wants to kick his ass. Jericho pours some paint down Goldberg's car. They had a little monitor behind Goldberg and Terry, and you heard Jericho just kind of messing around back there, and he grabbed a paint can and poured it all down the Barracuda. Goldberg saw this on the Tron, and he ran like hell. He sprinted. He was going through everyone. Everyone better have gotten out of his way because he would have ran him down. Also to note, Goldberg was also rocking the tucked t-shirt. So anyway, Jericho got the hell out of Dodge. He was running, and I think for the third straight week, he has like gotten in a getaway car or drove or just done anything in his ring gear, which I just find hilarious. I hope this is a trend that continues. Then we had the highlight reel with Christian, because Jericho, as you see, was running away from Goldberg, so he needed to get the hell out of Dodge. So Christian was now hosting the highlight reel. King says that the result of the poll was that 65% of the fans think the book would be a bestseller, so congratulations to JR. Christian says he's going to take over the show and turn it into the Peep Show. Christian introduces The Rock. Rock's Hollywood theme plays, much to my delight. Now, that was always my favorite Rock theme. I love that theme so much. However, I will say this, and I think this goes with a lot of themes. You know, you always see, like, when you go on, like, a YouTube video to look up a particular theme, you'll always see a comment saying, like, oh, you should have stuck to this theme. I always think changing theme songs is good. I mean, not to excess or anything, but, you know, I think for the Hollywood theme, while it's my favorite Rock theme, that theme should really only play when Rock's a heel, because that's a heel theme. You know what I mean? Some themes kind of work as both. I mean, like Edge's theme, I think, works as both a heel and a face theme. But like, look at Randy Orton. I mean, like, his Burn in My Light theme is one of my favorite themes of all time. But he definitely changed it at the right time, because that theme is for a young, brash heel / babyface. It worked as both heel and face. But like, now that Orton's an established veteran and everything, it's good that he switched to that Voices theme, because it fit him. It fit his new character, because he wasn't more about the Legend Killer. He was about being that, you know, apex predator type wrestler. So the Voices theme really fit with him. And it wouldn't make sense for, you know, a 15-year vet like Randy Orton to be coming out to a song saying someone's going to burn in his light. Like, and like, you know, just the lyrics are made for a younger wrestler. And Orton, as we know, is getting up there in age, and he's a veteran. So, you know, it doesn't make sense. So that's my little rant on that. Anyway, the Hollywood theme still fits Rock so well. And I mean, it's great, especially during this time when he was in Hollywood. But, you know, I think everyone was cheering Rock. People were going crazy for him. And then his old school Attitude Era theme, when it opens up with the If You Smell what the Rock's cooking, like, that's a great thing to use when he's a babyface. You know what I mean? Because everyone just goes crazy. So anyway, that's my little rant on that. I still love the Hollywood theme, so I wasn't going to complain too much. Rock compliments Christian and starts his finally little spiel, and then Christian cuts him off and says the new People's Champ has come to San Diego. Christian says he called The Rock out to tell him he's been replaced. He's a new People's Champion. Says he's the new champion of the people. Christian says he's on fire. Rock says he's on crack. Rock says he knows he's ugly, but he isn't stupid. Rock basically just calls his mom a slut and his dad a hoe, and he's going to whip his ass all over San Diego. That was pretty funny. Christian says, my daddy ain't no hoe. He's a pediatrician. That might also be one of the greatest quotes in the history of Raw. Like, not just in this show, but that was awesome. That made me laugh so hard. Christian says the fans no longer like The Rock because they booed him for the past 4 months. Rock says you should ask the people because you need to get the people's opinion. So instead of doing one of those like Stone Cold things where it's like, if you like Rock, give me a hell yeah, Rock literally got out of the ring, all right? And he went up to fans. Now he went to the crowd. Of course, everyone's trying to touch The Rock and everything, and everyone's trying to get pictures. Security guards are, you know, surrounding him. I saw a lot of Kodak disposable cameras. I was like, hey, shout out to 2003. Anyway, so Rock is going through, everyone's going crazy, and then he eventually came up to one dude, right? So he asked this one dude, who is the people's champ? He's like, who is the real people's champion? This guy got like so excited because like The Rock said, who's the real people's champion? And this guy went, Rock! Okay, so like I'm really lightheaded after that, but like that is literally what happened. So many people were swatting at The Rock. The camera was shaking. The security guards, they looked pissed. They looked like their life was about to end. They hated every second of their existence. Rock started his If You Smell thing. Jericho cuts him off. Jericho was running down the ramp, and he was also looking behind him constantly. And for a second, I was confused, but then I instantly remembered, oh, wait, that's right. Goldberg is about to kill Jericho. So Jericho is trying to just everything he possibly can do to just get out of Dodge in a moment's notice. Rock said someone touched the people's strudel when he was coming back into the crowd, through the crowd to the ring. Jericho is constantly looking over his shoulder, he says he's not going to get speared, and since he is never going to get speared, he wanted to ask The Rock what it was like to be speared. So that's the whole reason Jericho brought Rock on the highlight reel. He wanted to know what it's like to be speared by Goldberg. Rock says it hurts, and Jericho is like, thanks, bye. Rock says if Jericho talks to him like that, he's going to kick his candy ass, bitch. Jericho and Christian attack Rock. Booker T comes in to make the save. Rock comes back on Y2J with a spine buster and a people's elbow. Rock hits a rock bottom on Christian. Booker T gets a people's elbow on Christian. Booker T tells the Rock it ain't over. He mentions Rock's new movie, The Rock-a-Rooney. Rock tries and fucks it up, but then he ends up doing a pretty good job at the spin-a-rooney. So, so that was a good segment. I loved every second of it. The best was when The Rock was, going through the crowd. And, that was just a great segment. I loved every second of it. And we had a backstage segment. Jericho and Christian are all pissed that their show was, stolen by The Rock. They said they're about to leave. Austin cuts them off and says, you're not leaving, you're in action tonight. Then we had Kane with Rob Van Dam versus Rene, Dupree, and Sylvain Grenier. Kane throws Dupree in the ring. There was a weird network moment. Lawler mentioned George W. Bush, and the match just randomly cuts. I guess it was a political statement that was made, and they didn't want anything to come about that, so they just kind of edited it out, so it was really weird. Dupree knocks Kane down and does a little dance. Kane hits a side slam and a diving clothesline. RVD hits a top rope kick on Grenier and missed an outside moonsault and took a hard landing. Dupree gets a low blow from a distraction. I don't know how much that match was edited out, but half a star. Austin's music hits and says he tells RVD he's dismissed. Kane gets called back into the ring and Austin says he's been watching him. Austin says he's not impressed with Kane, and he says he always looks at Kane's Titantron when he enters the ring, and it says the fire that burns within. He says the fire that burns within you, Kane, is no longer there. Where's it at? Austin says Kane no longer wants it. Austin stomps on his boot, and then he takes Kane's hand and puts it on his own neck. Austin asks Kane if that makes him mad, and if that son of a bitch can still breathe. Austin says Kane is the sorriest son of a bitch he had ever seen. He slaps him, Kane grabs him, and the crowd goes nuts. Now this is why I loved this segment. Before this, Kane and RVD were just in a throw. Sure, they were the tag champs, but they were kind of like a throwaway team. They were kind of thrown together. Fans didn't really care about Kane. But here's a great way to get someone over. You build up to it. You know what I mean? Austin is berating this guy. For the moment, you actually feel sorry for him because he got fucked out of this match. Dupree cheated. It's not like Dupree made a bitch out of Kane. Kane was kicking ass, but then Dupree got the low blow, and that would put any man out of commission. You know what I mean? And then, Austin sees this and just berates Kane for losing for no... Kane was a victim here. So you kind of feel bad for him, but you understand what Austin's saying. And when it finally looks like Kane is about to go back to his original way, the crowd goes crazy because they want to see Kane kick some ass because they think he was wrongfully, wrongfully accused of being a sorry son of a bitch. So Austin tells him to do it. Kane lets him go, and Austin stuns him. Austin was able to make an apathetic crowd care about Kane. Kane sits up. Kane also has become a master of body language due to the fact that he can no longer use facial expressions because of his mask. So I thought Kane did an amazing job here. I loved every second of it. This was also another great segment. Then we had a backstage segment with Evolution. Before coming back from the break, Triple H is seen laughing at the ref locker room. Flair says he needs to end it all at Bad Blood. Triple H says, wait and see, there's not even going to be a Hell in a Cell match. Then we had a backstage segment with Jericho and Christian. Jericho and Christian are wearing matching tights, which I thought was very funny. They were on their way to the ring for their match with Goldust and Booker T. Then we had a WWE.com poll. Was Stone Cold justified in attacking Kane? So we had Chris Jericho and Christian versus Goldust and Booker T. Jericho's looking for Goldberg. He doesn't even do his pose, which I thought was hilarious. Now, see, this is another little thing that I've heard about in recent years in WWE. Apparently there's this rule going around where if you're supposed to be injured or anything, you're never supposed to sell any sort of emotional or physical pain during an entrance because the crowd comes to see your entrance and you better give them your full entrance no matter what. If Jericho came out, Jericho he does his little pose and then he walks around and he does his little strut, he flexes for the crowd, comes up the ring, does his little deal on the ropes and everything and bounces them off. But we all know Jericho is frightened because he knows Goldberg is going to be back any second and he's going to kill him when he gets there. So Jericho is just really kind of walking, pretty fast towards the ring. He's constantly looking over his shoulder and he's like, I need to get out of here as soon as possible. So because of that entrance, it further lets the audience in on the fact that Jericho, even though he's all talk and he's done all this shit to Goldberg, he's still fucking afraid of Goldberg because he knows Goldberg will kick his ass if he gets his hands on him. So Jericho did a great job here. Christian starts with Booker T, basic moves, slams, arm drags, punches, etc. Raw takes the third commercial break in like 5 seconds. I swear to God, like in between all these different segments that I've mentioned in the past, like couple minutes, there was a commercial break. So this was infuriating. So from the break, Jericho and Booker are in the ring. Jericho and Christian get the heat. Goldust gets the hot tag and goes crazy. Jericho breaks up a pinfall. Goldust gets the double DDT, goes for the Golden Globes, and gets cut off by Y2J. Booker gets the blind tag. Christian accidentally knocks down Jericho, and Christian gets pinned with a scissors kick. 2.5 stars. Fun match. Nothing crazy, but, good tag team match with 4 guys who are great wrestlers. Jericho gets the Intercontinental title belt while Booker T and Goldust were celebrating. He gets a belt shot on both of them. Robinson tries to take the belt from Jericho, so they're kind of doing a little bit of a tug of war, kind of arguing for it. Then all of a sudden the crowd goes nuts, and that's because Goldberg was running down that aisleway ready to get Jericho. He slides in, he gets set up for the spear, plants his feet, and he charges Jericho, pulls Little Nate, Charles Robinson, my favorite ref of all time, best ref ever, Charles Robinson, gets pulled right in front of the spear, and he gets clobbered. Man, he got destroyed by Goldberg. The storyline is great. I love every second about it. It's what the WCW storyline always was. It was Jericho one-upping Goldberg, and Goldberg just not being able to get his hands on him. That's all he wanted to do. He didn't want to try and, prank Jericho back. That's all Jericho was all about, the flashy pranks, making Goldberg like a loser. All Goldberg wanted to do was just get his hands on him for 3 seconds because he knows in 3 seconds he can kill Chris Jericho. Storyline is great. I love everything about it. Goldberg just can't get his hands on Jericho, and it's great for when he finally does it, Bad Blood, even though the match, it was good. Could have been better, but, good match. One of Goldberg's best matches of all time, in total honesty. Then we had a backstage segment with Austin and Bischoff with all the refs. Hebner said Triple H came to talk to them about Hell in a Cell. Hebner said Triple H hit him with a sledgehammer and injured Tim White in the last Hell in a Cell match he had with Jericho at Judgment Day 02. All of them refused to do it. Austin says he knows a man who's crazy enough to referee the match. They were fully chants in the crowd. Those fans are smart. I don't know how obvious this was back in 2003, but it was probably pretty obvious. Anyway, we had Randy Orton, Ric Flair, and Triple H versus Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels, and the Hurricane. Orton came out first, and his music was so goddamn generic. And then we had the results for our WWE.com poll. 76% thought Austin was justified in beating Kane. Shawn Michaels had on a backwards snapback, and the shirt that he was wearing, he had one of those, shirts that were cut on the side, so it was kind of just one that you can just kind of pull over really quick. He wore those a lot. But the shirt he was wearing was so big. It was way too big for him and really baggy. He looked like a teenage douche. Shawn Michaels started with Orton with his shirt and hat still on. I was like, I hope this isn't the new look for Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels and Hurricane do each other's poses, which was awesome. Triple H comes in. Hurricane and Shawn Michaels make quick tags. HBK teases a tag to Nash. Flair cuts off HBK with the chop block behind the ref's back. Nash gets the warm tag, as I like to call it. He slowly beats up Orton and Flair and drags Triple H back into the ring. Kevin Nash was moving really slow. Shawn Michaels was building it up. Shawn Michaels, they got the heat on Shawn Michaels, and he was really trying to build up getting a tag to Nash. And when he got the tag to Nash, the crowd was kind of like, yeah, they really weren't ecstatic. And Nash just moved so slowly. This is the first time Nash had been in action since that main event match he had with Jericho. His role on Raw was to invade in the main event when Triple H got the upper hand on his opponent after the match. And that's all Kevin Nash had done. So this was his first time back in the ring. He was doing okay. It's just there's no oomph to him. Hurricane gets the tag to get a high cross body and a shining wizard on Ric Flair. Flair is bleeding from the back of the head. I don't know when this happened. He wasn't bleeding from the face and it was trickling down to the back of his head. It was literally only on the back of his head. There was just a red spot in his super blonde hair. So I thought that was really crazy. And then I had no idea where it came from. So Triple H sneaks behind the ref and hits a pedigree for just a totally lame finish. Hebner counts 2 and then signals that the shoulder was up. He's 1, 2, and then he does that thing where the refs will, slide their hand under someone's shoulder to prove, hey, look, the shoulder's up, not a valid pinfall. And then all of a sudden Hebner's just fuck it. And he just rings the bell. So the crowd had no idea what to do. They started booing because there was nothing there. Kevin Nash powerbombs Triple H. JR and King said it's because Triple H intimidated the refs that, Hebner was fucking up. But to me, it just kind of seemed like a mistake. But and it was only proven to be more of a mistake by the fact that King and JR were saying who won. They could JR and King couldn't even come up with a possible winner. So apparently Evolution won, but Nash's music was playing. So let's just go over this all one more time, just so everyone can understand this. Triple H sneaks behind the ref, hits a pedigree, goes for the cover, Hebner goes for 2, signals that Hurricane's shoulder was up. There's a moment of silence, calls for the bell. Everyone's confused. The crowd boos. JR and King say that Triple H intimidated the refs, but everyone knows that's bullshit. And then all of a sudden, Kevin Nash just starts beating everyone up, and they play Kevin Nash's music even though they just announced that the winners were Evolution. This was stupid. I hated this match. Because the ending was so stupid, this match gets a dud. I don't care what happened during this match. A complete waste of time. Horrible ending. And the horrible ending just completely put this Raw in just subpar category. You know what I mean? After this Raw was over, I'm like, man, that Raw sucked. But it didn't. I was raving about this entire Raw. So if you watch everything except for the main event, I think you can find something very enjoyable with this Raw. Overall, a very, very good show with just a totally lame main event that kept it from being great. So that was it for me. I've gone way too long. This is over 30 minutes. It's probably the longest I've ever done. So I will see you guys later. Have a good day.